Something the matter with your bill, sir?
No, I just drank resin.
Yeah.
The bill is fine.
Sponsored by Sovol 3D.
Wait, really? Sovol? After the last video?
Yes, sir.
Huh. Well, I mean, I do really like the SV06 now that it's working. It's actually putting out pretty good prints.
Indeed.
Yeah, okay, sure. What would Sovol like me to promote?
Sovol would like to introduce you to their latest and greatest, the SV06 Plus.
Ooh, the SV06 Plus. That's the one that has the filament runout sensor and like the nice touchscreen and stuff?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. I mean, that was kind of like the main issues I had with the SV06, is it wasn't really feature rich enough for me. You know, I really like having that filament runout sensor and the nice touchscreen and stuff. So I'll tell you what, why don't you let me take this one and you go clean up that big resin spill in the other room.
I suppose.
Good lad. Do you want to print faster, bigger, and better than ever before? Then you need the Sovol SV06 Plus, the ultimate 3D printer for enthusiasts and professionals. The Sovol SV06 Plus is not your ordinary 3D printer. It has a planetary direct drive extruder with an all-metal, high-flow hot end that can print up to 300 degrees. This means you can print with a wide range of materials from PLA to PETG to ABS and even TPU. And with the planetary gear setup, you get higher accuracy and precision for those prints. The Sovol SV06 Plus also has a huge print volume of 300 by 300 by 340 millimeters, perfect for cosplay and large models. And with print speeds up to 150 millimeters a second, you can finish those big projects in no time. But that's not all. The SV06 Plus also has auto leveling, a PEI plate, silent stepper drivers, a touchscreen, and even a filament runout sensor. These features make your printing experience easier, smoother, and more enjoyable. The Sovol SV06 Plus is the best 3D printer you can get for only $350. Seriously, with the features they've added at this price point in this segment, that is a steal for a printer this feature rich and powerful. So don't wait any longer. Follow the link down below and order your Sovol SV06 Plus today before they run out of stock. Seriously, it's a banger of a deal. Thank you Sovol 3D for sponsoring this video. Now, Titans, the unobtainium of Warhammer 40k. Rare and prohibitively expensive. Or are they? Can they instead be made at home for no money at all, really? Probably, yes. Actually, let me show you. And we'll review the Saturn II while we're at it as well. 8K, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, do you need it? Spoiler alert, no, but more on that later. So if you're into infringing on intellectual property rights, and hey, no judgment, I've definitely downloaded a car or two in my time, you can absolutely find pretty close replicas of official Games Workshop Titans out there in the STL-verse. However, on this channel, it'll always be my preference first, whenever possible, to print proxies from artists who put their own creative spin on our favorite designs, rather than go for that one-to-one copy. And today, have I got a real special treat for you all? Allow me to introduce you to Sol White Studios and the Asamus War Construct. I believe this is a proxy for a Reaver Titan, and I've had these files sitting on my hard drive for over 2 years now, I think at this point, as I got them back when they were first released through Sol White Studios Patreon, known as Ephirion at the time, and I got a second set of the files through the Makers Cult in a collaborative crossover thing between the two makers a month or two later. Regular viewers of the channel will know I make it a point to review the printability of creator STL files and give them a tier rating, which all gets logged over on MINIRATER alongside the community's ratings. Hey, real quick, check this out. MINIRATER got a facelift. Nice. So it wouldn't make much sense to try printing these dusty old files from 2 years ago, would it? Not when I have the Asamus in my MyMiniFactory account library. Surely they're likely to have had an update or two since then. So to ensure I was using the most up-to-date files, I went and downloaded them again. And here's where things start to get interesting, at least if you're into nitpicking STL files like I am. Generally speaking, this is very well packaged. I like to think of digging into a fresh set of STL files, kind of like unboxing a kit of plastic miniatures. The renders in the root directory are like the artwork on the box. It tells you instantly what's in the folder. Next up, the folder hierarchy and file management is like the sprues. Everything has its place and is labeled well. In this case, we have all the pre-supported files in one folder and all the unsupported files in another. So it could be better, but it's good enough. And if we're really lucky, we get the source files for the pre-supported files, .lys if they were supported in Lychee, or .chitubox if they were supported there. The plastic kit analogy does kind of break down here, but I mean, those sorts of files could be damn useful to have for a variety of reasons, and unfortunately they're not to be found here. Except for the cannons, which I guess were released at a later date. Then there's instructions. Now, this kit thankfully does have instructions, because it is a bit of a complex assembly and a bit of an administrative hassle to figure out what needs printing and in what quantities. But those instructions were only included with the Maker's Cult version of the files? What? This was addressed in a post on Solwhite Studios' Patreon, however, seemingly still the PDF was never added to the MyMiniFactory files. Here's where I have to mention we ran a friendly little competition on my Discord server to see who could print, build, and paint an Asamus first. buymeacoffee.com/once-in-a-six-side. And if you stick around, I've got some cool shots to share with you of some other Asamus builds, but man, those poor guys got their files from MyMiniFactory and did not have instructions to figure this thing out. So okay, this is all really minor stuff, not the end of the world. The real important thing here is how printable are these files? Are they pre-supported well? Are they going to print nicely? Or are they going to give us headaches? So let's take a look. First print looks good. I was hoping to do a quick guide to magnetic flex plates for you guys in this one, but unfortunately I couldn't find one anywhere that was a fit for this printer. So I'll be removing prints the old-fashioned way. For big projects like this, I like to store them all away in a dark box and do all the post-processing later on in one big go. Let's try another plate. Bugger, this plate did not fare as well. But you know what, I'm actually glad this happened, because now I get to show you just how important it is to actually calibrate your settings. Because I did the lazy thing here and just used Elegoo's recommended settings for this resin with the Saturn II printer. I know the intro of this video showed off some 8K resin, but because I want my Titan to be extra durable, the resin I'm actually using here is Elegoo's ABS-like 2.0 grey, which I have some thoughts on that I'll get to later in the video. Taking a closer look at these parts, it's pretty clear the cause of the failure is disconnected support tips, which is either caused by underexposing or under-supporting. In this case, I'm fairly certain it's the former, because I tried printing the same sliced plate again, but this time adjusting the exposure time on the Saturn II. Wait, hang on. It looks like changing settings on the fly like this is not a thing with this machine, which is a bit of a pain because it meant I had to go back and reslice this plate to change the normal layer exposure value. And here's an interesting tidbit I had not considered for 8K printers. Processing all those extra pixels per layer results in a much slower slice time. I did a rough benchmark here slicing the same plate in 4K and 8K, and the 8K plate took approximately 2.6 times as long. So this is pretty interesting, I think, and it got me wondering, how does Chitubox compare? And remarkably, Chitubox absolutely smashed Lychee at this, slicing the same files in 4K in just 53 seconds and 8K in 1 minute 18 seconds. So for all you Elegoo owners out there, if you care about how long it takes to slice stuff, Chitubox is 100% the way to go here. But I'm getting off track. So reslicing that same plate now at 3 seconds, it printed great this time. And I did later calibrate, confirming that this exposure value is bang on the money. Which, this is another interesting tidbit about the Saturn II. It doesn't natively support exposure range finding. However, I found out you can actually do it using UV tools. It is a little clunky. It's not as fast, and setting it up is a bit confusing, and it's definitely a lot slower to print than if it was a native exposure range finding function like it is in the Anycubic machines, because the way UV tools works around it is by printing each incremental increase in exposure as a new layer, just with the same Z height, if that makes sense. This also got me curious as well about the Mars 3 Pro, so I went back and tested that, because I'd since updated the firmware on that thing since the last video I did on it, and it worked here too, so that's just bloody awesome. So we can do resin exposure range finding on the Saturn II and the Mars 3 Pro at least, but I mean, yeah, again, it's a bit clunky, it's not perfect, but anyway, moving on. Whoever supported these files definitely seems to be riding that razor's edge of success and failure here, as these practically fell off the models. But thankfully, I didn't have any more failures resulting from underexposure. However, beware travelers, yet more dangers lay ahead. The eagle-eyed among you will have noticed that I had the Mars 3 Pro running off Titan bits too. And if the purpose of this video was just to challenge myself to print the whole Titan using only the Saturn II, then you'd be right to call me out as a cheat here. But as you may know, these videos do take me bloody ages to make. So I enlisted the help of both the Mars 3 Pro and the Anycubic Mono X to help speed things along a bit and save some time. But more importantly, I really wanted to compare the difference in quality between these printers. Both the Mars and the Mono X have 4K screens, but all three printers have an XY resolution within 25 microns of one another. And to explain whatever the hell I just said a bit better, imagine each square on this grid here as a pixel, and that what we're looking at here is a 4K LCD. As we increase or decrease the size of this LCD, our pixels grow and shrink proportionally. This is our XY resolution. So the Mars 3 Pro with its smaller 4K LCD has smaller pixels and therefore a higher pixel density than its big cousin, the Mono X. And then the Saturn II, which has a similar size LCD to the Mono X, has a similarly high pixel density to the Mars 3 Pro because of that 8K resolution. This XY resolution on our printers is commonly expressed in microns, and so the Mono X has an XY resolution of 50 microns, the Mars 3 Pro of 35 microns, and the Saturn II of 28.5 microns. 28.5 and 35 are pretty damn close, but at this scale, so is 28.5 and 50 microns. I expected I might see a difference between the Mono X and Saturn II, but honestly, I can't even really tell any of them apart. Can you? This model, by the way, if you're interested, is from Dorkfactory and their latest Kickstarter. I'll leave a link in the description, though Dorkfactory isn't paying me or anything, just to be clear. They sent me these files for free with no obligations, and I just wanted to use one of them here and give them a little shout out. They make some pretty cool sculpts. So check this out. As I was getting these files ready, I spotted a huge resin trap inside the Titan's head. And this is the sort of thing that if you don't catch, will cause a lot of pain for you later. Now, I personally haven't experienced this, but I've seen the photos and heard the horror stories where pockets of uncured resin will over time create a positive pressure inside whatever cavity it's stuck in as the resin lets off fumes, and this can lead to models cracking and spilling the resin everywhere. The fix in this case was to just add a little drain hole here where it won't be visible on the final model, and here's a photo that Newman shared on the Discord of his Asamus head after drilling it out. So yeah, do watch out for that. The next hidden danger I ran into is pre-supported files with errors. There were two models in particular that failed for me. This section of the hand here basically printed a bunch of extra stuff that shouldn't have been there, making the supports impossible to remove. And what's cool is you can actually see the artifacts in the slicer before you even print it. I used Microsoft's 3D Builder to repair this, and you can see now that those artifacts are gone, and it's sliced and printed beautifully this time around. I really wish creators would repair these files for us before they release them, but more than that, I wish the programmers over at Lychee and Chitubox can figure out why it is that their software exports otherwise error-free models into pre-supported STLs with errors. It's really annoying, and they could just save everyone a bunch of time if they could fix that. The final problem I ran into here, I think, has a few things going on, and it's to do with these shin armor panels. Now, I try and never critique models based on how they were actually sculpted, and instead try to focus purely on the printability side of things. However, here, and I'm not sure if this was intentional or just something that was missed in the design and testing of the Asamus, but these panels compared to all the other armor panels are super thin and flimsy, which I think was compounded for me by the slightly flexible properties of this ABS-like resin. And what's interesting is these panel lines that are on the front cut almost entirely all the way through this armor, and you can see from the backside here just how thin and fragile these are as a result. So the way I got around this was by modifying those armor panels in Blender to have the same thickness as the rest of the Titan armor, and that did the trick. Other than those issues, printing the rest of this Titan off was a breeze. I mean, there was a couple of small failures where the models came off the supports, and again, I think this is more to do with the supports really pushing the limits of what's possible here. I'd recommend for anyone else who's going to print these files to increase your normal layer exposure time by 15 to 20%. It's not ideal, but it is what it is. Which leads me to my rating. Now, if we're just talking about the Asamus, it's a B tier. From the risky supports to the resin trap, to having to remodel parts in Blender and the errors causing bad slices and failed prints, I wouldn't recommend these to someone brand new to resin 3D printing to go and run off. But is it really fair for me to throw Solwhite Studios into the lowest tier on MINIRATER here? These files are over 2 years old after all. Surely I should look at a more recent release to draw my conclusions from? And yeah, that's probably a fair point, but then should creators just be left off the hook for their back catalogue that may not be as up to scratch as their more recent stuff? We are always improving our craft with time, whatever it is we do, be it sculpting or supporting models, video making, painting, and whatever else. And so our older work, generally speaking, is not going to be as refined or polished as our later work. But in the case of a product that is still being sold to this day, I think higher standards should be kept here. And creators should absolutely invest the time or resources into bringing their back catalogue in line with their refined practices and standards, at least if they're going to keep these models available for purchase. I've really got to commend another creator here, Stationforge, for doing exactly this recently. I've been wanting to make a video that features some of their models for a long time, but the right inspiration for that video just hasn't struck yet. But seeing this sort of effort is just terrific, so thank you Stationforge for setting an excellent example here for the community. Sol White Studio, for me at least, has to go into B tier for now. But please do feel free to share your own experiences over on MINIRATER. And remember how I said I think this Titan is a proxy for a Reaver? Well, have a look at what's currently in the works right now. I'm pretty sure this right here would make a great proxy for a Warlord Titan. So if you want to see that video, yeah, let me know. In an effort to not overwhelm myself, I took this build pretty slowly over the course of about a week. And I'd recommend to anyone else building a Titan to do the same. Don't rush it, just take your time and do it right. Pin absolutely everything that you can, and use a powerful adhesive like maxi nails or a 2-part epoxy. Overall, I'd say this actually wasn't as challenging as I thought it might be, and I'm really happy with the way it came together. The only hurdle I did run into really was doing a crap job of pinning this claw, and so I just reprinted it and started again. That's one of the best things about 3D printing, honestly. Wait a minute. Oh my That makes building Titan legs look easy. Hey, check it out. Army Painter Speed Paints 2.0. Cheers, Army Painter. You ever see a slap-chopped Titan? Me neither. Let's find out what that's like. After priming everything in black and giving it a white dry brush all over, I airbrushed Gravelord Grey over all of the metal bits. This is an original speed paint, and this colour is sadly missing from the V2 set. I really hope it hasn't been removed from the range completely. This is probably my most used colour from the V1 set. I then gave these same parts a quick dry brush with gunmetal. After which I started painting over the armor panels with either ochre clay or grim black from the new speed paint range. And I don't know how to describe how I feel about these new paints other than a great sense of loss. The drying time is far too quick now, which leaves them streaky when painted over large surfaces, and they also tear if you go back over the same spot too late, and so blending is probably off the table now. They've lost some of their best properties, frankly, and for what? Was reactivation seriously that big a deal? I never had an issue with it. I feel like V1 speed paints would have handled these large flat areas with no issues, whereas V2 seems to limit you in this regard. I did still get a cool result here, but I'll definitely need to spend more time with them and paint some minis. For now though, I just can't help but feel a bit sad about this change. Would it be too much to ask Army Painter to have 2 lines of speed paints, do you think? Off camera, the base got sprayed in bright red, and then one night I left my chair a little too close to my workbench, and one of my rabbits was able to jump up and, well... Come here. Come on. You're the skittish one. Yes. Relax. It's fine. fine. Just chill. Good boy. Good boy. Bloody rabbits, man. They are great pets, but fucking hell do they test you sometimes. Jesus Christ. Pippin, do you want me to eat you? Is that what you want? Oh man. I was gonna do this awesome reveal, you know, the finished Titan, but now I gotta fix it.
It's alive!
Fixed it! So can the Saturn II print a Titan? Absolutely. Just look at this thing. I'm thrilled with how it came out, and the extra texture the bun added to the base ended up working out fine. All up, this Titan will take about 3 liters of resin to print, but maybe add another liter to account for any problems you may run into along the way, though hopefully after watching this, you won't have any issues. Yeah, the new speed paints are a little disappointing for me. They've definitely lost some of their magic, but I'll keep using them and we'll see how I get on with them in future videos. This ABS-like 2.0 resin from Elegoo is amazing, by the way, and I'm 100% a convert now. It's a bit pricier than your standard resins, but I think it's worth it for the added durability. It is still brittle in some ways, but it definitely flexes a lot more before it finally breaks. It's relatively low odor too compared to some other resins. It kind of just has a mild nail polish smell to it. So this gets a big recommendation from me. I like this resin a lot. But what about the Saturn II? Well, for me, this isn't as clear cut. I will start by saying it's an amazing printer. It puts out fantastic looking parts, and the inclusion of the charcoal filter does wonders to cut down on the fumes. But if that's not enough for you, they've included an exhaust port on the rear of the lid to adapt to any ventilation system you might have. It's one of the most quiet printers I've heard yet. It's actually quite remarkable how quiet this printer is. Compared to the Mars 3 Pro, it's very surprising. I guess because it's a bigger printer, they can fit bigger fans in here, so it's quieter. It's nice. It's a good, quiet machine. I like that. And the build volume is great for running off large projects like this, but where it falls short for me, like other Elegoo machines, is there is no native resin exposure range finding function, and Elegoo, as far as I know, have no interest in developing this feature. As mentioned earlier, you can do the UV tools method, but yeah, that's a little clunky. The USB port is on the side, which might bother some of you. I personally don't find it too annoying, but I would prefer it if it was on the front. Overall, the printer feels very well made and is a joy to use, and I do not think you would be disappointed with it if you bought one. Though maybe it's just me, but looking at this Titan, I have no idea which parts were printed in 4K and which were in 8K. So if the quality difference is negligible to you too, and you want to save some money, you might be just as happy with one of the other Saturn models. And if you're dead set on 8K, then maybe the Saturn II... Wait, what is this? Saturn 8K 10-inch mono LCD, $379? Just buy that. Maybe. I haven't tried one, so can't comment on it, but I can refer you to another channel here that does great printer reviews and has covered both of these machines. So do check out Fauxhammer if you want to know more. Congrats Roborome on finishing your Asamus first. Look how bloody cool this thing turned out. The blends, textures, decals, and stripes are all fantastic. Great work. I've got 2 bottles of resin heading your way, good sir. And runner-up, Newman's is coming along very nicely too. That marbling effect is just so good. Thank you Sovol for sponsoring this video. Do be sure to check out the SV06 Plus for your next FDM printer, and thank you Elegoo for sending over the Saturn II and the resin for this video. And of course, a big special thanks to all the latest supporters over on buymeacoffee.com/1in6side. Thank you very much Bazooka Tooth, David Lindley, Patrick S. Ishii, Ricardo Acosta, Ashley Farrell, Chris, KCrit42Q, B Terminal, Blaths, Mr. Lizard, Jonathan Heyman, Taylor, Leech Route, Grey Raven, Slayin Creations, Steve Hunt, Stash Ravens, John Gregory, Jaya, Juan Hong, Christopher Lee Cromer, Fraser, John Gipp, The Nerd Life, Cuddles Crew, Sylvia Poolham, Matthew Howen, Irish Kroger, Austin Smith, Matthew, Jesper Holmberg, Malt, Adam Trevino, Kevin Chaos, Existent, JT, Mr. Bean Fontaine, Darth Mortarian, Wixie Chris, Richard Short, and Matthew Riggin. You guys are awesome. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.